Warriors of the Eternal Sun is an RPG that gives you a surprising amount of control over your party. First, you have to choose which classes you want, a difficult decision in of itself with each character having their own advantages and weaknesses, apart from the halfling. But even after selecting your class, you have further decisions to make, thanks to the reroll function. This rerolls your stats at the top of the screen, and can be performed an unlimited number of times until you're satisfied. But what do each of these stats do? Well, spoilers, it's not exactly what you're expecting. Greetings to you all and welcome. Now I'm actually going to start by explaining the right column of stats first, contrary to common reading order, because they're simpler to explain. From top to bottom we have Class. This is what you select using the fancy pictures below, and is in no way influenced by rolling. Level is always 1. HP/max. You'll see this number changing as I reroll, but that's a bit misleading. Your HP is controlled by your Con, short for Constitution, combined with your class choice. It's not directly changing. AC, below it, stands for Armor class, and follows a similar rule. This time it's being controlled by your Dex stat. Next level is the experience required to level up. It depends on your class choice and nothing more. And finally, gold does randomize with rolling, but we can always farm more gold by killing some monsters, so no one in their right mind would worry about that over their permanent, unalterable stats on the left. Speaking of the left, onto the interesting stuff. For each of these stats, I'll read out what the instruction manual says it does, before telling you what it actually does. Strength affects how well your character hits with melee weapons, handheld weapons, and how much damage each hit causes. Strength is an important characteristic for fighters, dwarves, elves, and halflings. Now that's what the game booklet thinks, and it's pretty accurate. What you're watching here is me fighting a fire giant, because it's a very stationary enemy with a lot of hit points, repeatedly with a fighter using a dagger. Now you'll notice that all of my damage will be in the range 1 to 4. This is because a dagger deals 1 to 4 damage, and my fighter has 9 strength, the absolute minimum, which means it doesn't influence the damage dealt in the slightest. As you can see, every hit I do will deal 1 to 4. It's not 1 or 4, you'll see a lot of 1s and a lot of 4s for some reason, but I can hit 2 and 3 as well, I promise. But yes, 9 strength is giving me no benefits to my melee attack. I will deal 1 to 4 damage every time. Now the terminology used by the booklet hides a secret that is technically true but not that apparent. It says that it affects how well your character hits with melee weapons, and how much damage each hit causes. That's 2 different things. What it's saying in the first instance is your chance to hit, and the second instance is the damage you deal. Now, on a cursory reading, I don't think that's that apparent. If you play Dungeons & Dragons, it probably is apparent to you. But if you don't, there you go. It's your chance to hit, and your damage is affected by strength. But we need to prove this to you. So that's enough of my weakling 9 strength fighter, lo and behold. So now what I've done is I've taken Silvic off to the gym, and if you gaze at the top left you'll see strength is up to 18. He's ready for action. Let's see what kind of a difference this makes to his attacks. Starting off strong with a 7. Look at that, numbers we've never seen before. So what is this doing? A strength stat of 18 adds 3 to any melee damage roll you deal. So my dagger used to do 1 to 4 damage, now it's doing 4 to 7 damage. And hopefully we'll get a nice variety of numbers. Look at that, 5, 6 and 7, that's more like it. But it's a simple addition. So for having 18 strength, we get an additional 3 damage on every single attack. The damage you gain is actually break-pointed. If you have a strength stat of 9 to 12, then you get nothing. 13 to 15 gives you +1 to any damage rolls you do. 16 to 17 gives you +2, and 18 gives you +3. But there is another way to get 18 strength in this game. So what I've done this time round is I've set Silvic's strength back to 9, but I've also given him the Gauntlets of Ogre Power. Now this is a special artifact that sets your strength to 18. If you look in the top left, you'll see I have 18 strength, but I actually have 9 strength underneath it. So the question is, do the Gauntlets of Ogre Power even work? And this is highly debated. Place your bets now. And here we go. No. They don't do a damn thing. We're back down to doing 1 to 4 damage per attack. Now people always debated whether or not the Gauntlets of Ogre Power actually work because it displays the number 18 in the stats page, and that leads you to think that it's working. But then other people, through playing the game, just felt, my damage doesn't seem much better wearing these gauntlets, and they're right to think that. It doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. So that's a great artifact. Right, that's strength done. Let's move on to intelligence. Intelligence is a measure of your character's ability to think, analyze, and memorize. This is most important for magic users and elves. Complete nonsense. Let's explore. So currently you're watching Valimus, the magic user with 9 intelligence. He's dumb as rocks, and he is firing Magic Missile, the most basic spell. You'll get a feel for the kind of damage range we're in here. It will do somewhere in the 3 to 7 area. That might not be the absolute max limits, but it's a good ballpark to work within. You'll also see me do a few random actions here and there. I'm actually loading a save state each time, so I don't have to sleep in between casting spells, which would take all day. So you'll see me do things like walk in and out of the cave, or shoot my sling at a wall, just to try and throw off the RNG seed. Don't worry about that. Just look at the damage numbers. You'll get a feel for it. Right, what happens if Valimus hits the books and goes up to 18 intelligence? You gotta be quick to catch this. There you go, look, 18, top left. Out we go. Right, let's test it. And lo and behold, you already know what's going to happen here. 2? Okay, let me be clear about this. He's not got worse. My guess of 3 to 7 was the damage range was wrong, I suppose. And the damage range was actually 2 to 7. It's pure fluke that he's now hitting for 2. And I just can't throw off the RNG seed. I promise, he's not dumber than he used to be. The conclusion here is that intelligence doesn't work, not that intelligence is negatively impacting me. Now I'm being harassed by a huge beastman. Come on, Valimus, you can do it. 5, that's more like it. Okay, whew, saved it. But yes, having 18 intelligence is certainly not improving my magic. But how about we take things to a bit more of an extreme? Oh yes, now we're cooking. Alright, Valimus, show us, what can 99 intelligence do? You already know. It's the same. It does nothing. Is this conclusive proof? I'd like to think so. However, you may be watching this thinking, I swear I've seen numbers higher than this from Magic Missile. If you've played the game before, you've seen a number above 7 from Magic Missile. I'm sure you have. And if intelligence doesn't affect it, then what does? Well, the answer to that, in fact, is level. If you look at the second column, the right column, second thing down, I'm level 8. Now I'm back to having only 9 intelligence, I'm pretty dumb, but my damage is through the roof. This is why your spell damage goes up over the course of the game. It's because it's based on your level, not your intelligence. So, intelligence, a really useful stat. Up next, it's time for wisdom. Wisdom reflects your character's ability to learn from experience. This ability is most important for clerics. What on earth does that mean? Now, what I always took from this was ignore the first part, ability to learn from experience. I don't care about that. But instead, most important for clerics, and it's wisdom, that feels kind of like a healing magic stat to me, sort of spirit in some other games. I don't think it's uncommon for wisdom to govern how much you heal, and this is what I always assumed, and I'm sure some people assumed the same, so that's what I thought I'd test. What you're seeing here is my 9 wisdom cleric using Cure Minor Wounds. Minor Cure Wounds? Whatever. Small heal. Onto my wounded fighter. Just to see how much HP we restore. You're getting a feel for it now. Somewhere in the region of sort of 2 to 5-ish per heal. That's with 9 wisdom. What about if we bump it up to 18? So now we are wise beyond our years. Let's see how our healing does. I'm testing it inside and outside just to throw off the RNG. It doesn't actually do anything different whether you're in or out. Start by healing myself for no apparent reason, that's great. But as you can see, healing amounts are basically exactly the same as before. No change whatsoever from having an extra 9 wisdom. And if you're thinking, well, it's about learning from your experience and maybe you get more spells or better spells for having more wisdom, no, you don't. Anyone who's played the game will be able to tell you that. Cleric always gets exactly the same list of spells. Next thing to test, logically speaking, what about level? It affected intelligence, maybe it affects wisdom. So I made my cleric Amelia as powerful as I possibly can. I've given her 18 wisdom, which does absolutely nothing, and I've made her level 8, which admittedly isn't the highest level she could have been, but it will suffice for this test. Let's see how the healing goes. 3. Great, wonderful. So the truth of it is that level also plays absolutely no impact on how strong healing spells are. If you're wondering why healing spells are so weak and how you're ever supposed to scale them up in the end game, the answer is you're supposed to stop using Cure Minor Wounds and start using Cure Major Wounds. The game gives you more powerful heal spells, but the original heal spell stays weak forever. Right, that about does it for Wisdom. Another great stat. We're moving on to Dexterity. Dexterity measures your character's agility and hand-eye coordination. A high Dexterity decreases your character's armor class, making the character harder to hit in combat. A high Dexterity also makes it easier for a character to hit with missile weapons. That is actually an accurate description. Now let's start with the armor class. I'm back here in the character creation menu, rolling to my heart's content. Take a look at my dex and take a look at my AC next to it. And you'll notice that whenever I have a high Dexterity, I have a low AC. And whenever I have a low Dexterity, I have a high AC. It's working on the same breakpoints as Strength for this time -1, -2, -3. And in this game, a low AC is good. It seems odd that armor wants to be low rather than high, but it's Dungeons & Dragons, that's the way they do things. They're weird. So you can observe the armor class part working here. Let's go fire some missile weapons. So what I've done here is I've gone and got Sylvic and reduced his Dexterity to 9 in order to test this out. He'll be using a sling, a standard sling. It deals 1 to 4 damage. With a minimum roll in Dexterity, we would expect it to deal damage in the 1 to 4 range, consistently, every time. So I should just let this play out a little bit. We'll get a feel for the damage numbers that he can achieve. I think I've seen everything bar 2. Nothing out of the ordinary here. There's a 2. Beautiful stuff. Damage exactly as you'd expect then. Right. Let's bump up the Dexterity all the way to 18. So now we have increased our way all the way up to 18 dex. We're still using the same basic sling. Let's go and see what happens to our damage. Remember, with strength, we got +3 to every attack. And with our Dexterity, a 3. Ooh, it's middle of the road. What does it mean? It means we're still doing 1 to 4. Now, 2 thoughts may occur to you at this point. The first thought might be, well, maybe slings don't really count for some reason, even though they're clearly missile weapons. Maybe it only works with bows? No, I tested bows separately. Bows do not gain damage from Dexterity either. So Dexterity is not adding any damage to missile attacks. And you would expect it to, because Strength adds damage to melee attacks. It would seem like the natural balance. But to be fair, the manual never said it did that. Let me read this out again. A high Dexterity also makes it easier for a character to hit with missile weapons. Doesn't say it does more damage. says you're more likely to hit. And as far as I can tell, that is true. So what Dexterity is doing is it increases your chance to hit, but not your damage. But then it also improves your armor class. So Dexterity is actually a pretty good stat. The final two stats, Constitution and Charisma, Con and Cha, can be explained, I think, without example, because pretty much everyone's in agreement as to what they do, and they're not wrong. So, let me read out Constitution for you. Constitution reveals how sturdy your character is, including how resistant the character is to the effects of poison. High Constitution scores grant a character extra hit points. So Constitution only comes into play when you roll your character at the start of the game, and then every time you level up. When you level up, you gain hit points randomly within a range. Your Constitution adds a number to that, and I'm fairly sure it's the same breakpoints as Strength and Dex. So if you have 18, whatever HP you're due to get, you'll get 3 extra hit points. It still depends on your class. A dwarf is still going to get sort of 9, whereas a magic user is going to get about 4. But having high Constitution does bump that up a bit. So, very important stat for everyone. And everybody knows what this does. We've all seen the different HP gains on level up. So, no debate there. But very good. I don't know about it helping with poison. I don't think that's right. I think it's literally just health gain on level. Charisma. Let's read this one out. Firstly, the instruction book calls Charisma CHR. Bit misleading. But it says the following. Charisma measures how likable your character is, taking into account appearance and personality. Now, within this game, appearance is fixed. That much is clear. There's only so many pictures. Personality occurs literally once in the game, in the form of a text box telling you who is scared when they cross the bridge. It does nothing. Charisma does nothing. This game is based on Dungeons & Dragons, and in Dungeons & Dragons, with creative people and human beings at the helm, you can do charisma checks to try and pass things in unique, clever ways that avoid combat. Persuasion, that kind of thing. This is a computer game all about killing monsters. There is no persuasion. There is no non-combative solution. Charisma does nothing. And everybody already thought it did nothing. Some people had doubts because why would they program it in if it did nothing? No. It does nothing. Just like half of the other stats. Summary time. Strength. Good stat. It increases the damage you do with melee weapons. It also increases your chance to hit with melee weapons. Intelligence. Useless. It does nothing. Wisdom. Useless. It does nothing. Dexterity. Good stat. It increases your chance to hit with ranged weapons, and it decreases your armor class, which makes you take less damage. No. Makes you less likely to be hit. Technical difference there. But it's a good stat. Constitution. Governs how much HP you gain on level up. Good stat. Charisma. Useless, as we all knew it was. And that is the stats for Warriors of the Eternal Sun. With this information in mind, I will soon be creating my own party, and I will be playing through the game in a Let's Play format. Hopefully you'll join me for that, and I shall see you then.